Okay. I am. This is awesome. So I've been trying to make this happen for a while, and tonight everything lined up, and I'm very happy. Tonight is going to be Ben or Banjo Ben Clark. This guy has a great life story. He is an amazing musician. This guy plays guitar and banjo like it is nobody's business, and I am from around a place where a lot of people can play the heck out of a guitar. He is a pilot, he's an entrepreneur, and he's a music educator, and he has some great stories to tell. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring him on. Welcome, Banjo Ben.
Hey, man.
Ben, how are you doing?
Good. It's great to be with you, Ivan.
Man, I've seriously, I've been trying to get this to happen for a while, and when we first set it up, life happens, things come and go, and we've had to rearrange and all that. But that's because you're a busy man, and that's a good thing, isn't it?
Whew. Well, this time of year, yeah, this is a busy time of year. It always kind of piles up toward the end, and so I'm thankful for that, especially these days. And but I'm glad we could make this work, and I'm excited to talk with you and your audience, and hopefully we got some folks from my audience and community coming over to check out what you do as well.
So give us a little bit of background. I kind of set this up,
Mhm.
put a little bit of background. You did not start your career path in the direction of music. It was something quite different. What was that about?
Sure, man. So I did have a very unique upraising. It's nothing that I did. It just was blessed to be in a very diverse um, family, a family that valued the outdoors. We lived on a farm, a working farm, and then also paired with that was this heritage and legacy of music, but particularly classical music. And so from a young age, I played classical piano and was pretty rigidly trained on that.
Okay.
And so I always saw piano and music as a discipline and something that I couldn't wait to quit doing whenever I was old enough to be able to quit. And so looking back on that, I see that it was that discipline there that helped me later on in life. But
Sure.
as far as I was concerned, when I graduated high school, I was never going to touch a piano again. And actually, I didn't. I went to several years in college without even touching a key on the piano. That was one of the biggest mistakes ever. But I went to college to try and be a veterinarian,
Okay.
and I majored in pre med, and through a wacky series of events, I ended up majoring in entomology, which is
Like you do.
uh, yeah, like you do, um, which is the study of insects. And then I was going to Texas A&M, and M, and they had just started this new grad school program track that was forensic entomology, and we won't get into all that either. But I went that direction full blast, and was on track to be the youngest PhD to graduate from that program, or so I dreamed. And but it was during that time that I started playing guitar and banjo and mandolin. And I actually had one of my professors in my grad school program that was nurturing me in that and helped me get my first mandolin. And we were having jams in the laboratory after we get done with our research. And that I had no idea that whole trajectory was beginning to form. And actually, it just was a result of being completely burnt out in school. Like I said, I was just running and gunning. I was up midnight one night working on an insect physiology paper, and the internet was still kind of new back then. This is '01, '02,
Sure.
but I'd heard about this school out in West Texas called South Plains College that had a commercial music program where you could kind of major in banjo and bluegrass.
Okay.
I thought, really, is that true? So I searched it, and I found out to be true. So I sent a letter, I think an actual letter, out there with a CD that I recorded of a little instrumental that I'd written, and said, "Do you have any scholarship money for me? Because I'm broke." And they wrote back and they said, "Absolutely, we'll bring you on." And so I walked away from a $1 million+ grad school fellowship and enrolled in junior college to study bluegrass and banjo. And uh, moved to Nashville from there, and many other things have happened since then. But yeah, I find myself now running the website banjobenclark.com, and also working with just a wonderful, talented team of folks in my store, and just having a ball.
So, and this is what I find. I mean, this is just the best thing. So, I actually ran into Ben. I want to say about 7 or 8 years ago. I was teaching myself guitar, or some different style of guitar. I'm a rock guy, and I was trying to learn some. I guess you would call it Tony Rice style.
Yeah,
I didn't know
me
that
too.
at the time. I just knew it was this kind. I didn't know the names. I didn't know the people. And so I found this video, and I'm going to play it, just a clip, just a little bit of it. And this is my introduction. And the best thing about this is, and this is what I love about this, because I've been watching your build, and it's just been, I mean, inspiring. So let me pull this up, and I may mess this up because it's a YouTube video, and I'm going to try to make it to where there's no ads or anything like that. So let me see.
Okay.
Let me see what I can do here. Hold on a second. Play. Let me. You know, it.
I can go without seeing myself from 10 years ago.
But it's such a great video because it's basically you. I think it's in your bedroom or on the couch or
Living room.
something,
Yeah.
living room, and it is just a webcam and you,
Yeah.
and you're playing the heck out of a guitar, and it's just awesome. I'll figure that out later. But
Yeah,
so
it's
tell
all
me,
good.
so from there you actually got formalized, started banjobenclark.com, and your production and your videos went up. Tell me about that.
Well, sure. Well, there's a big, a lot of things that happen between that time at South Plains College and the website. Um, and we can go back and talk about any of that you want. But I spent quite a few years on the road and just blessed to play with literally the biggest artists in the world, and got to see the world and have all kinds of cool experiences that I'm thankful for. And then eventually came off the road and started writing songs. I got a publishing deal with Sony Publishing, and the landscape was really changing in Nashville at that time. It still hasn't settled down, but that was during the transition between physical record sales and the whole digital revolution. And things were changing, especially for how songwriters were getting paid and publishing companies and record labels were making their money. And so I knew that I probably needed something more stable, something to devote myself to and build. And I had started when I was on the road with Taylor Swift. I had started during my downtime making these really low budget, silly instructional videos with my little MacBook, much like what you were going to show there.
Sure.
And they started gaining popularity on YouTube because there wasn't a lot of that, and a lot of the instruction that was on YouTube, honestly, wasn't that good. I was trying to learn how to play too, and so it was either the just the masters performing and you couldn't really hear or tell what they were doing, or if someone was trying to teach it, they might not do the best job at slowing down exactly what was being played, and it was frustrating to me. So I kind of made a promise to myself that if I was ever going to figure out how Tony Rice was playing something, that I was going to do my best to show other folks, and that's what I began doing. They got more and more popular until I found myself kind of faced with that real decision of, am I going to try to make a living at this or not? And nobody was doing that. This was back in 2010. It
Sure.
just wasn't around really. And so I started my first little website, the first installment of banjobenclark.com, where I would just sell tabs for $5 a pop. And people would come and buy a few here and there. And I thought, wow, people actually want to learn. And it's just grown from there to where now I have a big full blown video studio in this old cabin that I have here on my property. And so it's a lot has changed over the years, but it's been a long, slow grow that I've learned a lot and lost a lot too. So it's been quite the journey.
I think I got it to work now. I want to play this video, but then I also want to play another video of you teaching something, and so people can kind of see
Hmm.
what's going on. So I think it'll work this time. Let us see.
Basic guitar licks, and I hope you enjoy them. Okay, we're going to start off with what I'll just call G lick number 1. This is one that's used not only in picking, but all the time at the end of musical phrases. You'll hear this lick. Um, it's probably the most important one to learn because you'll use it all the time, even playing rhythm, not just playing lead. And as many flat pickers as there are, that's how many different ways there are to do this lick. So I'm going to show you a few standard ways, or a few ways that I may do it. And a lot of times it depends on the speed of the song as to which one of these that I'll use. But it sounds something like this. Now,
I love that. I love that. It's just honest playing, but you're right. It needed more for
Hmm.
growth, right? For what you've turned it into. But it was helpful to me, and a lot of people, and we did respond to that. You're you said you went to college to learn this bluegrass, to learn how to play bluegrass,
Hmm.
but gosh, Ben, it seems like when you play, it's just so instinctual. I cannot believe that was all just something that somebody taught you. It has to come from somewhere other than just formal learning.
Well, I don't know how formal any of that was out there because it was a commercial music based program. So it was centered around actual performing and real life application of music theory, and playing. So, but you have to remember also that I'd played piano very intensely and at a very high level for around 13 years
Okay.
growing up. So all of the theory knowledge was there, and actually, and my hands were connected to my brain. So I came into it with a bit of a head start as somebody that was first starting. But I think one of the reasons why students, particularly new players, relate to me is because I do remember what it was like to have to learn these things. Whereas most of my musical heroes, you mentioned Tony Rice, him, and many others, they probably don't remember what it was like for their fingers to hurt or to figure out how to make a G chord.
Sure.
It goes back so far, but I do because I was like 18 and 20 and 22 years old when I was like, how do you do that? And
Right.
so that's very recent memory to me. And so I'm able to look at folks that are wanting to start playing, look at them in the face and say, I know what that feels like. And look, if you just keep doing it, this way, and if you change this maybe, and you keep at it in this direction, it'll get better. I promise. Because I remember. And so, when you have that paired with, I mentioned the discipline earlier of growing up playing piano, it was nothing for me to practice many hours, on piano, and multiple hours a day. And so, and to get something until it's perfect, like you have to be trained, I
Right.
think, or encouraged. Well, I did. I think some people naturally do it, but I had to be greatly encouraged, if you know what I mean, to execute something until it is perfect and
Gotcha.
do not quit until it is.
Gotcha.
And I carried that into that time at South Plains College. Pair that with I was grown. I was much older than I was kind of the Matthew McConaughey of South Plains College. I'd already been through undergrad, through a pretty rigid program, and then into grad school. And like I wasn't out there at this junior college to jack around. I was out there to learn as much as I
Right.
could. And so I treated it as a full time job with overtime. So I spent literally 12 hours a day on average, playing and studying and trying to get better. And so a lot happened in just a few years, but um, there's a combination of nature and nurture, I think.
Sure. And here's what I thought was awesome. This is one of the reasons I became a gold pick member of your website, and we'll talk about that. I definitely want people to know about it. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there with good intent, doing awesome things, showing people how to do things on YouTube. And that is awesome, and I think it's great that people do that. But here's where you did something a little bit different, And it seems like a silly thing to say, but it was just such a big deal. You figured out pretty quickly that that one camera view is not going to get it done. And so your setup now is there's a great view of the fretboard, there's a great view of the right hand, and then there's a little window that shows the tab. You start out doing a slow version, then a medium version. It is like you are sitting in the room with you. Expand on that.
Sure. Well, a lot of that was thanks to folks like you that kept requesting things to change and to get better. And so my older videos, it's not a 2-camera view. I couldn't afford 2 cameras.
Sure.
And and I didn't know how to operate video editing software and get 2 cameras going at the same time. So it was definitely a learning curve. But yeah, it was, again, it's putting myself in my student shoes and saying, gosh, if I was trying to learn this, what else would I want to see? What would I want to be said more slowly? What would I want repeated? What do I think is important? And you can't, you try to do those things for the masses. You can't possibly personalize that for everyone.
Right.
I saw my YouTube channel the other day it passed 100,000 subscribers. I was like, what in the world? So, and so I know from some comments that I get that not everybody's a huge fan of how I go about things, and you're never going to please everybody. but there's enough people out there that identify with the pedagogy approach that I have, and I'm always trying to think about that. I'm always trying to think, if I was on the other end of this, the other side of this screen, what would be most helpful for me? And that's what I try to do, because I'm asking people to pay for this. I mean, there's a lot of amazing YouTube videos out there for free, and I still put out a lot of free stuff, but I'm also making a living out of this. So I'm a perfectionist, so I do it the best that I can.
Sure. Let me play a clip. I believe this is Cherokee Shuffle. I'm going to see if I can do this one right. And I'm going to play a little bit of this, and people can kind of see what we're talking about.
You'll really dig it. Check it out right here.
I could never play that again. It would take me a year to learn that.
Oh my God.
God. That's silly.
And that was your arrangement though, right? That's not
it's my arrangement, but goodness, who's going to learn that? I guess, well, I say that. I've had quite a few kiddos really impress me and play all that stuff note for note. And that's actually still a pretty old video. That was probably 5-6 years old. A lot of changes. No, more than that. Because I've been in my new studio for over 6 years, and that was the old studio. So I've moved to more, to 4K cameras and more lighting and everything. But that kind of reminds me of something else. When I first started teaching, I don't know, maybe I had a bit of a fear of people not thinking I was good enough to teach or something, and so I would put out a lot of material that was very difficult to play, because I think deep down I wanted people to see what I could do.
right.
And people were like, I experienced a lot of, wow, that's great, but I could never play that. And I remember I was getting these requests like, could you show us how to play that G chord on guitar? And I'm like, what? I'm teaching all these Tony Rice licks, and kept getting those requests. And so I put out my first beginner video. I think it was how to play a bluegrass G chord and guitar, and it exploded. And I was like, okay, dummy. People are needing to learn from the very beginning. And so that's when I began to keep track of skill levels and trying to fill in the beginners learning tracks and take people on a journey, and not just appeal to those top few percent that might try to learn these crazy licks that honestly I can't even hardly play nowadays. Like I said, it took me a year to learn that again.
but it's a great version. I love how you use your thumb on the fifth string. That's a lot of fun. Um, and again, though, just and I guess that's that piano training, and because that's a fairly complicated that melodic style.
Hmm.
It's that you came up with on your own, and I
Hmm.
mean that's just really good. You've mentioned that growing up there was music going on around you, and you've kind of hinted that there was a bit of a family component to that. Now you were involved in a project with your sisters. You have two sisters that are in a group called the Purple Hulls, and you did some stuff with them too, right? So tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Sure. Actually, I have three sisters. They're all super talented, and two of them are twins and are in the band, the Purple Hulls. They had moved to town probably about the time I left Taylor, and they actually signed a publishing deal at the same time that I did with Sony. We weren't really signed as a group, but we were signed at the same time, knowing that we were probably going to work together. And through that process, we decided actually then to start a band because we had access to Sony Studios and some great musicians, and took advantage of that. And we recorded an album, more of a country album.
Okay.
Had drums and bass and electric guitars, and we began touring, and started to get pretty busy, and had a lot of things lined up. When my we got the news that my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and that he probably had about a year, is what the docs thought, which they
Okay.
were ended up being very, very accurate. So the girls, I already had a family here with kiddos, and a home here in Tennessee. The girls were a bit more mobile, and they dropped what they were doing in Nashville and made that sacrifice and went back and took care of my dad uh, till he passed away the next year. Now, when they were in Texas, um, we didn't play together because just the distance thing.
Sure. Sure.
And they had never really told anybody that they had moved to Texas, but all of a sudden gigs started getting offered to them in Texas, and they started doing them as a two piece. And before they knew it, they were really busy. And then after Dad passed away, they just remained there. They're still on the farm, and they have just taken off. They turned it into a three piece with a bass player and done really well. And I rarely get to play with them anymore. I actually played with them last weekend in Dallas at a festival, and that's the first time I played with them in a long time. They play too fast for me anyway. They play all those licks, in that Cherokee Shuffle there. They play all those licks and much faster and much better than me. So I'm their biggest fan, and love watching them get better and better.
Well, how does that, like, going back to when you guys were kids though? You
Hmm.
always see, and I'll be honest with you, it's kind of I get a little bit jealous of it when I see these families that are out there doing music together as a family. My son and I do a little something where I play guitar and
Cool.
banjo. He plays guitar and violin. And actually, I'll go ahead and a little self promote here.
Oh, nice.
And so,
I love it.
and
That's great.
but
I
how? I
get
mean,
the
was there any hint when you guys were little that this was a thing, a possibility down the
Well,
road?
no, there really wasn't, Ivan, because we're 7 years apart in age.
Okay,
So you think about, by the time I started playing banjo and guitar and mandolin, I was up around 20 years old, and I was out of the house. They
okay,
were 12, 13. And but I remember my sophomore year in college, I started playing banjo, and I came home over Christmas and brought my banjo home and my Mel Bay book, and I was showing the girls kind of what I was doing. And by the time I left to go back to college for a spring semester, they had already learned everything that I learned for the whole semester and playing it better than me. And so my dad recognized that, and so he got them some instruments, and they started playing and growing. But we never really played together. They were learning how to sing harmony together. They were learning
sure,
how to blend and do those things, but not with me. We actually never had a band or really made music together until they moved to Nashville. And besides maybe doing a Christmas carol or something. And then we worked up our first song was a hymn, "What a Friend We Have in Jesus," and it was one of those low rate recordings, much like you've played earlier, and recorded with my MacBook and in my kitchen, and that video as low quality as it is, has millions of views across various platforms. Over 1 million views on YouTube, and I see it on Facebook all the time with millions of views. So that's pretty incredible, and that was inspiring because that was the first thing we'd ever done before, and people loved it, even though it's low quality production. The the guts were still there, and people could tell that we had something, um, and that something being those girls. And I was just kind of hanging on for dear life. So that's what got us kind of pushed us forward to try to pursue more music.
So I remember you guys, posting about your dad passing away. I actually lost my dad to cancer too. Was
Oh
he
yeah.
a fan? Was he?
Oh, of course. Yeah, but he was very careful not to be an ostentatious fan. He was very humble and also very humble about his kiddos. But he would sit there and just smile, closed lip smile, and have a tear form on his eye. He got to see us play at the Grand Ole Opry, and um, did all that he could to get good instruments in the girls' hands, and so yeah, as proud as could be. Um, and I wish that he could see us now, and uh, maybe he can, but. Yeah, we miss him greatly. He was our biggest fan, even though he wasn't super vocal about it to other folks. He was always there to support us.
That's it's hard when like I said, I lost my dad too, so I understand exactly what you're saying. He was proud of the music I was doing too. Except he could be really loud about it sometimes too. But that was how he was. My dad was not subtle by any stretch
That's
of the
just my
imagination.
dad's personality. My sisters were really good basketball players. They actually played a little ball in college, and they were pretty dominant in high school. And at the basketball games, Penny and Katie would be running over people, and he would just sit there. He wouldn't clap or nothing, but he'd be really proud. But he didn't want to draw any attention to himself. And I appreciate that. He's a very, very humble guy, and he taught me that other people are more important than yourself, and I'm really thankful for that.
Well, that's so, and so you guys kind of, they're doing their thing. The Purple Holes are doing their thing, and then you started doing this, and then some things came along that honestly I didn't foresee. You have a banjo line or a name model. Is that correct? Is that Tell
Yep.
me about that.
Yeah, we partnered with Gold Tone Instruments to build a banjo model that we conceptualized. It's actually nothing new. It was just had some appointments and some qualities about it that were really desirable in older pre-war banjos. And Gold Tone was willing to put that particular combination together, and they've done really well. We sold quite a few of them, and then of course the virus hit and shut down a lot of the transport of goods and such. So it's been a little slow since then, but they're great banjos. We called it the Twanger, made by Gold Tone.
That's awesome. I mean, how cool is that to wake up one day and say I've got this line of banjos. That just goes to show
Uh-huh.
how much your name is out there. Now you've hinted at this, but I'm gonna explore it just a little bit. You've said that sometimes people have not been as appreciative of some of your style for teaching. I think I know what you're talking about. What do you mean by that? Some of your
Well,
characters that you've portrayed, or
sure. Yeah, I wasn't talking specifically about that, but that's true. I think anytime that you do something your own way, you're going to have criticism, and if you're going to put yourself out there and and try to be authentic and expose yourself, you're going to have people criticize you, and sometimes that's great criticism. Actually, what I was referring to earlier was as I was uh, teaching, and sometimes I'd be explaining something, and people would comment and say, "Hey, you talk too much. Why don't you play?" And my initial reaction is, "Well, maybe you should just listen to what I say, but I'll go back and I'll listen to the video and I'm like, you know what? I did talk for like 3 minutes in a row about something when I probably could have done that in a minute and a half and got on playing. So it's that kind of feedback that's really helped me if I'll keep myself humble, but and also sift through that and see when people are not being helpful as well. As far as some of the characters I've done and stuff, you can only, this is for me, I can only work by myself in a basement studio, which I did for many years, for so long before I about go crazy. And one of the ways I can entertain myself is to invent different characters and have some fun with myself at my expense. And I've done that, and I did get some pushback from some of that. People would think that I would make fun of the culture or make fun of the art and tradition of bluegrass. That's definitely not the case. It's actually the opposite. Um, you know, I was taking this maybe silly stereotype that some folks might have and pulling the curtain back on it and saying,
Sure.
actually, once you come in, you can see that it's quite a sophisticated and honorable pursuit, and that bluegrass deserves its spot at the table with every other viable art form and genre. And so I think if people would hang with me long enough, they would see that. Sometimes the reaction was that I was trying to make fun of somebody, but I can't really make fun of somebody if I am actually that material. It's like
Right.
I come from rural East Texas, and I'm making fun of caricatures of myself,
Sure.
and then showing people that those caricatures you shouldn't judge people by caricatures. And even though some people might come from a certain culture, they have something to offer. And so it's kind of been funny to me that if some people got and a few got upset at some of the silly things that I would do, they completely missed the point and miss the great honor and respect that I have for not only the genre but all those who have built that genre and provide the foundation that I try to stand upon now.
And I would agree with everything you just said. I first of all, some of the, and people just have to go find them for themselves. But when you do your characters, when you do bring an entertainment value to it. I've got family in Texas. I'm from Alabama. I've lived in Georgia. I'm no stranger to just about, I've lived in Chicago. I've traveled. I've been around so many different types of people, and you do meet some types of people that sometimes you would say there's a stereotype for different things. And I know that stereotypes are overgeneralized. But having said that, when you would do your characters, and these are kind of for the people who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, he does these skits and he uses them as a teaching tool. And I find it to be very entertaining. I find it to be very heartwarming. And I certainly don't find them to be mean or malicious or degrading or anything like that. And then you connect that with such a high level of skill and proficiency that I think it's probably one of the reasons why I ended up becoming a Gold Pig member, why I ended up kind of following along with what you were doing. I'm on the Banjo Hangout forums, and I read stuff, and I think that the reviews there have been overwhelmingly positive. But every once in a while, you get somebody that's like, well, that's the big one is that, well, that's just taking banjo to a place, and it's just not like that anymore. It's banjo is this sophisticated thing now, and you know what I mean? When that attitude that I get what you're saying.
But see, the moment that you have to actually say that proves that you're not that way.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like the art should speak for itself, and the art does speak for itself. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm so confident in what the banjo is and how good this music is that I can even be self-deprecating and know that after the laughs are through, the art form and the instrument and the music is going to stand on its own. I don't have to tell people how good it is.
Right.
I don't have to defend it. It's going to defend itself. So I think that once you have to try to start making excuses for how something isn't what people think it is, then I think you've lost. and I think that the folks that would think those detrimental things or deprecative, uh, that's not a word, but I think you know what I
It can
mean.
be a word. It can be a word.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But negative things about bluegrass, they haven't explored it, and they are believing some kind of caricature. And people might say that I'm trying to propagate that, but I'm not at all. I'm actually, and I have thousands of emails to prove this, hooking people into drawing them into this art form and then showing them that there's substance there when they may be believing some kind of false stereotype. And if you want me to prove it, I can show you that my number one and number two most student dense geographical areas in the country, you know where they are? It's not Alabama. It's not North Carolina.
New York?
It's not East Tennessee. It's New York and it's Los Angeles.
I believe it.
That's where my number one and number two student bases are. I know there's a lot of people there, but the point is this, that it's people being drawn into this music that aren't exposed to this music and they're loving it. And you know what? They're going to be fans of this music for their whole life. And so I'm really not out to market to folks that grew up with this music. They don't need me a lot of times anyway. But I am out to grow this genre. I am out to spread the good news of bluegrass and banjo and guitar and mandolin and get new lovers on the roster. And I think that my approach to that does that very thing. And we have those testimonials to prove it. I think that's the coolest thing just about my job is introducing it to new folks that would never hear about it.
I think that you touched on something there. I've noticed as soon as you said that, I was like, I bet it's New York. I bet he's going to say New York. I can't help but wonder. And you and I kind of talked about this before we went online tonight about, with everything that's going on in the world. There's just a lot of awful things, and I don't need to get into that. Everybody, all you got to do is turn on the news. And music has been a way for musicians as a release, but it's also been there for an audience to be soothed, for hope, things like that. And I can't help but wonder when you have some of these larger metropolitan areas that aren't known for any given style, and they come across something like bluegrass or folk or roots or Americana. There's an honesty about it. I'm a fan of many different kinds of music. You can just go back on this show and I've electronic musicians and rock musicians and I'm a fan of it all. But there is something just honest and organic about two or three people with non-amplified instruments making great music in their living room, on their porch. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Is that you think that your music speaks to people like that?
Sure. What's inherent in bluegrass and Americana and folk is community. That's where this music was born. It was born on front porches, and it was born in sharecropper circles. And so that's what, so many of the lyrics and so many of the attitudes of the songs are around that community. And so it fosters community whenever you play it. So bluegrass is not a solo sport. And that's one of the reasons why I love my site so much, is that I'm able to offer some kind of community to folks who are not around others that play this. I have lots of soldiers on my site that are stationed all over the world, right. And a lot of foreigners, that if you're a banjo player in Magdala, Israel, you're probably not going to have another banjo player on your street, but I've been able to, through the site, unite bluegrassers in entire regions, through the community of the site. And that's just the coolest thing in the world to me.
You've actually, am I mistaken? Have I seen some posts of you playing. I don't know if they're on missions or foreign travel, like you're playing with people out of the country, and you've sent some
Yeah,
pictures back
I've
and
been able to
forth.
take the banjo all over the world. And sometimes that's on mission trips, and sometimes that's on to Israel. I've been several times to Israel and leading trips over there, just tourist,
Hmm.
um, biblical tour trips. And because I teach at my church as well and pastor, and but I have all these students over there, and we get together and we have a big jam up in Galilee, Israel, and it's the coolest thing ever. I've taken my banjo to Mexico and South America and Cuba and India, and I that's one of my favorite things as well is to see the reaction of these different cultures to a sound that they've never heard before from an instrument that often has tonal qualities and rhythmic qualities in common with what they love and what they're natively accustomed to.
Sure. No, and some of the pictures that you've shown, the looks on the faces of the people around you, everybody seems very, very happy, and that's one of the things. I talked to you a little bit about this. I woke up one morning and told my wife. I just looked over at her and said, "Yeah, I'm gonna play the banjo," and she was just like, she had no what we.
Oh no,
She's like, "Yeah,
it's
this
finally
was not in the prenup, and so."
happened.
But what I have found, playing electric guitar, and I play acoustic guitar, but I play it like an electric guitar player plays an acoustic guitar, just kind of basic chords. But one thing I really love about banjo, and I play clawhammer style, is it covers a lot of ground emotionally. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not just all drive and speed. There's melody, melodic banjo. There's
Excuse me.
atmosphere. There's people that know how to pull back and keep it minimal when let other players take the lead for a while. It's a very dynamic instrument, and I don't think people who aren't around it give give it its due. Give it credit for what it can do. The range that it can cover.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. It is quite a wide genre, and that has all of your, like you said, all of your emotions that can be captured in songs, within that genre and under that umbrella. And if you're looking for it, you can find it in bluegrass and old time music. Because it's the music of the people. Again, it's not a manufactured sound.
Right.
It's grown. That music has grown out of true emotion. So it's not just engineered music that's trying to draw emotion. It's real emotion that's produced music that, when played again, produces more emotion.
No,
And so it's real.
it is real. I think I look on the interwebs, and I see a lot of 20 somethings out there killing it on the banjo. I mean, they're just
Mhm.
killing it. Clawhammer, Scruggs style. I see, 9, 10 years old, 12 years old, 15s, early 20s, and I really feel like they're taking it somewhere. Like they are
Mhm.
taking it to the
Oh yeah, for
next
sure.
place, whatever that might be.
Hmm. Yeah, I try not to watch too many of these young pickers, or I'll just get depressed. They're so good.
Oh, you're not lying. That's harder when you're my age and you see some 9-year-old on Letterman
Oh
playing,
man,
Scruggs
yeah,
like he was a little Scruggs himself, and yeah,
yeah.
you smile and you say all the right things, but inside you're like, God, really?
You know, but at the same time, it's been such an honor of mine to be maybe a small part of their journey as well. I
Sure.
was in August. I was featured on the cover of the Banjo newsletter, which is just a dream come true to be featured on that publication. And the guy that interviewed me is one of my favorite players nowadays. He actually is just a recipient of the Steve Martin Banjo Award. Matthew Davis
Oh
is
wow.
just a prodigy. And, it's so humbling because he told me that he used my videos to get started, and I'm like, seriously, like my silly videos, helped inspire, didn't totally inspire, but helped inspire and helped bring along this kiddo that lives in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, that's already is and will be a world renowned musician. that's pretty doggone cool. That's the power of the internet and the good stuff that comes out of YouTube and other platforms.
No, I think that's awesome. I want to play another tune here. This is you with your sisters. This is an older song, I believe. Let me see if I can do this
Okay.
without messing this up. This is a great song, and you guys are just awesome on this. So here, let's take a listen.
Love me, yes, let me know. You tell me I wanna know. Reach my breaking point at last. Pack my stuff and hit the gas. Blue sky, black top, songs on the radio. Singing me down a lonesome road. These bills can change direction if you call and say you love me so. There's one down, losing ground. You got 10,000 exits left to go.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Oh, thanks, man. That's one the girls wrote. They're great songwriters.
Well, you're a great musician. In fact, so let's tell me this. How in the heck did the entomologist to be end up playing with Taylor Swift? That's
Yeah.
how did that come about? Let me
Well,
you actually sent some pictures here.
okay.
Let me put some of those up while you're telling this story. This is awesome.
Sure. Well, so I left South Plains College in 2004 to move to Nashville for a couple of different reasons. I wanted to try to make it in the music business, but also the gal that I had started dating out at South Plains College had moved to Nashville to finish her education at Belmont University, so I was chasing her as well. But I moved there and I had just a couple contacts in town and met some folks. Nashville is a surprisingly small community of musicians, and which is good if you get out there and hustle. It's not good if you don't have do a good job.
Sure.
But I found myself just really within a year playing for a new artist on a major record label, doing the radio tour. We had just a ball, and it turns out his manager also managed American Idol finalist Josh Grayson, and so they needed a piano player for a weekend. So I went out and did that, and that drummer with Josh Grayson went on to play, be band leader for Taylor Swift, and so that's kind of how things in Nashville happen. Very rarely do you get gigs in Nashville from actual auditions. You get gigs by just doing a good job and knowing folks. And so when I got the call for Taylor, she only had one single out, and I was not a fan. I'll just be really honest. I kind of joked with my wife. I was like, "There's no way in the world I'd play this song for a living," and I was playing that song for a living. A few weeks later, but I got the call, and I honestly, I was playing for Craig Morgan at the time, who's a Grand Ole Opry member and really talented guy and a fun gig. And I thought, I don't want to go to work for some 16-year-old gal who's going to have her mom and dad on the road all the time. What am I getting myself into? And then he said, the band leader said the magic words that every Texan musician wants to hear. He said, well, we've got the opening spot for the George Strait tour. And I thought, well, there you go. So, I was from Texas and I grew up on George Strait, and that was just a dream come true. So I went actually to play for Taylor to be able to tour with George Strait and just see what that's all about. Honestly, I didn't have any idea that Taylor, would become what she would become. I didn't know how long I would be there. And it was an intense ride, because over the course of the next 2.5 years, she went from a brand new artist that had one single out when I began to whenever I quit and walked away from that to sign a publishing deal. She was the number one selling artist in the world. She surpassed U2. So I saw that in a little over 2 years.
Wow.
And that was an experience that very, very few people get to have. And for that, I'm very thankful. I learned a whole lot.
I think you earned it. I mean, I definitely would say, like when I watch you play, when I see what you've taught, And when I see that when you come up with these arrangements, again, I know that you like I said, you trained, you got it down and you learned the theory, but again, I just can't help but feel that this comes from someplace, that there's something extra above there that I could have gone through the same training, I wouldn't have come out like what you've done. I don't think I have the heart that you have when it comes to this.
Oh, well, I mean, I want to say thank you to that, but I also want to say that whatever that is that you're talking about, I'm not responsible for that, so I can't take any credit. Um, I didn't wake up one day and say I want to have the gifts that I have. Those are a gift in and of themselves, and we're all gifted differently. And we're just supposed to be responsible stewards of those gifts, and that's what I try to do. But make no mistake about it, I am nowhere in near the top tier of pickers and singers in this incredible town of Nashville. And there were many, many dozens, if not hundreds, of people ready to step in and do my job for Taylor just as good as I could have. That's just the way this town is. It's just like when you're watching an NFL game and a running back or a quarterback gets hurt, and very often the second string guy will come in and throw like a 80-year-old or 80-yard bomb or make some incredible run. You're like, that guy's second string. Well, yeah, he's still a pro.
Right.
He's amazing, and that's how Nashville is. I tell people literally your server here at an Olive Garden could be a better musician than you are.
Sure.
Just hasn't caught maybe the breaks that you have. And so I've been in the right place at the right time and just had much favor and grace poured out over me. I've tried to remain humble in that, knowing that, just knowing what the competition is out there. And I've tried to make myself as marketable as possible. And that's what I tell folks that have moved to town. And whenever I have an opportunity, sometimes I've guest lectured at Belmont and various institutions, people that want to come to town and do things like I've done. And I believe in being honest. I say, you're not going to move to Nashville and be the number one guy or
Right.
gal. You're not going to move here and be one of the best guitar players in town. You're just not. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to crush people's dreams, but I also don't want to puff them up. But
Right. No.
you can go into a high school football team and if you tell them y'all could be all pro, Hall of Famers one day. No, that's not true. I mean, maybe there would be one, but one out of a million, and literally. But here's what can happen, and this is the good news that I give them. You're not going to be able to go there and be the best. There's always going to be somebody better than you, but you can be the best that you can be, and you can work harder than other people. And those things will make up for talent differences often. And I'm the living proof of that. So what I tell folks is make yourselves as marketable and as diverse as you can. So pick up that mandolin, learn a few chords, learn how to strum it, learn how to sing harmony, learn how to do whatever you can. I got my commercial driver's license. I drove buses part-time for artists and would save them money. My goal as a musician was I want to do so much for this artist that they can't fire me because they would have to hire 2 extra people to fill
Right. No, that's
all the roles that we're doing. I would hustle merch after the shows. I mean, I've literally slung thousands of Taylor Swift t-shirts after shows. But I wanted to help the organization. I was part of the organization. I wanted to help Taylor, but at the same time, I wanted to make myself very valuable. And that's I just tell you that because it would be disingenuous of me to sit back and say, yeah, I was so talented. I got the job with the number one selling artist in the world. No, I was in the right place at the right time. I could play these songs as they needed to be played, just like hundreds of other people here in town. And I worked my butt off to be as diverse as I could. And I showed up to bus call on time and I didn't jack around in rehearsals. And that's how you get a job in Nashville, and that's how you keep it. So, I just want to be really honest about that because I think ultimately that's encouraging for people out there.
I think so.
Because you don't have to be the best at what you do, but you got to just work hard, maximize your own talents, and try to bring a different mix of talents and skills to the town. No matter if you're talking Nashville music or if you're talking construction job or engineering or a medical job or whatever. Bring a set of skills and talents to that job that other people are going to have a hard time matching you on, and making yourself valuable, making yourself marketable, and worth something, and you'll work. You'll
No,
work.
I think you hit on it. I mean, tenacity is in an industry town, especially. I mean, is you just have to have it, like you said. When I was touring briefly in a band based out of Chicago, it wasn't so much Chicago, but we would play in LA a lot, and LA is just. I mean,
Same way.
same way. And, and there's always,
Mhm.
we would show up as a band and, okay, we're here to, take some names and kick some butt and be just absolutely humbled by the other bands that we would play with. In fact, we made some really good friends that I'm still friends with. And just to see that, oh, look at, there's some talent here, there's some creativity, and there's people that are here that are very tenacious and willing to do what they need to do. I saw that a lot with bands too, bands that would work together as a group and say, okay, what are we going to do as a group to survive and to market ourselves and to get out there, and what are we going to go without? And if people think about musicians as having that life, well, that life may often mean, waiting tables, working late, having multiple jobs, going without a lot of things. So no, I think you're absolutely right. But you took it past that and you started teaching, but now you've also opened up a store, a brick and mortar store. So now that's not just online. Tell me about that.
Right. Yeah, sure. So it made sense for me, being in the instruction business, to try to also sell things that people needed and wanted to be able to play and learn. I just simply didn't have the bandwidth or the expertise, the retail expertise, to do that. But I had the desire and some seed money to try to get that started. And so I was introduced to, through a crazy series of events, to the guy who's now my right-hand man and store manager, Jake Stogdill.
Okay.
And Jake, he's good at lots of things, a whole lots of things, but he's also really good at managing retail, and particularly this niche of acoustic and bluegrass instruments and supplies and accessories. I sound like Hank Hill. And so he was looking for a new opportunity, and I was looking for somebody that could make it happen. And so we started Banjo Ben's General Store about 3 years ago, and it exploded because we carried the best, the most desirable gear that was the best for the money, but also just how we treated people. We didn't care about profit. We still don't ultimately care about the bottom line. It's about treating people the way that we'd want to be treated.
Right.
And we often lose money because we do that. But it's important long term to treat people like that, and that's, I think, a reason why we've been successful. And so now we're up to 5 full-time folks out there at the General Store. It's in Missouri because that's where Jake and his team lives, and it's also the center of the country that makes for the fastest shipping.
Okay.
And so we've primarily been online the last 3 years, but we need more space. We need more warehouse space, and so we found a building that would work for that, but also had a wonderful showroom. So we bought that, and we've remodeled that, and we've did a soft opening a few weeks ago. They're just west of Branson, Missouri.
Okay.
And we'll do a big grand opening around Black Friday. And it's a cool place. It's a cool place just to go and hang out and sit around and pick and tell stories. And we've got a Coke machine, and we sell pocket knives and moon pies. And it's just I wanted it to be a place where people wanted to be.
Well, I think that is really cool, and I like the idea. It's hard. I'm fortunate that in the town where I live, we have a really good music store, and it's one of the kind that I've actually seen come up on the forums that, yeah, there's this place in Kansas, and yeah, that's where I live, and they're really good, but that it's there needs to be more, and I think you're filling a very real need.
Here's another thing that's not very smart for me as a store owner, but I say it anyway. If you have a music store in your hometown, go support them. Like, buy stuff from them.
Right.
Not from Amazon, not from Guitar Center online, and not from Banjo Ben online. I believe in supporting small business, and especially these music store owners in these towns. And there's plenty of other business to go around for folks like me, and that's one of the reasons why I started. Just like with lessons, I'm bringing a service to people who don't have access to it.
Right.
That's what I want to do with my general store. It's to bring quality goods and quality service and setup and all those things to people who don't have access to that. A lot of people have music stores in their town, but they're not bluegrass areas. And so that guy at that music store, even though they're really nice, they might not know anything about setting up a banjo, but we do. So we're able to offer that kind of service even virtually and through the mail, but I'm a big fan of the mom and pops, and I even, I'm a dealer. I've got strings piled up around here everywhere, and I still stop by Shiloh Music and Mount Juliet and buy stuff at retail prices from them that I could get on my own website and order for cheaper, because I want those guys to survive.
Right.
And I think that's important for community, And I'm a free market guy. I hope Amazon continues to do well too. But I want the other guys to be fairly treated, and I want to help people do that too.
Well, it's nice when you walk into a store, and they know who you are, and
Sure.
they've been working with you for a while, and they know what you're about, and they kind of know what you're looking for, and they'll keep an eye out for, hey,
Right.
that kind of thing. And call you up, hey, I can't believe it. We got one of these that just came in the other day. This guy had dropped one off used, and that kind of thing. And so yeah, I worked at a music store, and it was nice knowing my customers. So I hear you on that. This is a weird segue here. Are you a pilot? Is that
I am, yeah, just a private pilot. I don't fly professionally or anything.
But you have your PPL or private pilot's license. How long have you been flying?
10 years. Yeah. I actually when I came off the road with Taylor, I had some time at home for the first time ever, or since I moved to Nashville, and it was a dream of mine. And so that's when I got my license. And I don't get to fly as much as I want to, but it's a passion of mine for sure. I know what that flight is. I can tell by the shirt. My wife and I are flying down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and we watched my Texas A&M Aggies beat the hell out of the Crimson Tide in their undefeated season. There's my check ride.
Oh, is that your check ride? That was your
Yeah, that's the FAA instructor giving me my final sign off.
Was that your?
Yeah,
was that?
I flew that airplane home by myself as a licensed pilot. So
Is that your plane? Do you have your own plane?
no, I've rented that one. Yeah. I don't sell that many lessons.
Well, yeah, I was in a band in Tuscaloosa for a while. I actually went to Tuscaloosa for a year. Yeah.
Okay.
So great town for music. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Great music town. They used to call it Little Athens. Back in the day when REM was out of Athens and all that kind of stuff, and that was kind of the sound that was going on. Well, Ben, I just want to say thank you for your time. This has been a lot of fun for me, and I appreciate you sitting down with me and just chatting about stuff. Check in with me in a year, maybe. I would love to have you back and talk about more stuff. I could do this all night, but I know you are a busy man. You've got a family, you've got kids, you've got a store, you've got lessons, you've got, holy cow. I think you're one of these people that need the day to be 28 hours and not 24.
That'd be nice. I have a great team. I did a whole lot of it on my own for a long time, and I've been able to grow the team steadily. And so I have team members here in Nashville and folks there in Missouri that allow me to begin to have a life again, because it was pretty crazy there for a while. But I'm thankful for the growth. Yeah, and hopefully in a year we'll have new fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Ben, I'm going to say goodnight. God bless you and your family, and just keep doing what you do. And I appreciate you. And just again, have a good night and thanks so much.
You too, man. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Wow, that was awesome. He's so inspiring to me. He's that rare mix of talent, being upbeat, driven, and with these accomplishments. And it's just been neat watching him grow. Each of these shows, I try to look for a message within the the interview. And I think tonight was something that Ben said, about tenacity, about, don't go into a situation, thinking you're going to be the best. Because, statistically speaking, unless you're that one person, you're not going to be the best. And so the odds aren't really in your favor. But that doesn't mean you can't work hard and do something with the skill set that you have and that you worked so hard to get. And that you won't walk away with a sense of accomplishment and, pride and that you set out to do what you wanted to do. So I think that's really awesome. I am going to kind of fade out tonight with just some of Ben's music. This is just a couple little things that he sent, and so I'm just going to play this, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. You guys have a good night, and see you again in a few weeks.